Hello everyone, my name is NewFlowerGirl, but you can call me Demi, and today we are going to be learning about the King of the Ring, aka Marc Marquez. Marc Marquez is basically right now an 8-time world champion in MotoGP. His last title was in 2019 before he basically got ruled out in 2020 for an entire season. He tried to come back to race after that incident, but it just wouldn't work. He had too much pain, so he couldn't come. He couldn't race anymore. But this year, 2021, in Portugal, he raced again, and everyone was delighted to see that. But we are going to be not only learning about, what happened during that crash, because it was a crash. We're also going to be learning about how he started. Just like with any other racing driver podcast I have done, we are going to be learning about how he started, what his championships are and stuff. So yeah, let's go. And if you aren't subscribed already, please go and hit that subscribe button. Would be much appreciated. And comment down below which driver or manufacturer or just anything in particular you want to learn about, and I will make a podcast about it sometime in the future, because I've got lots of them listed on my phone. But I just chose, because Marc Marquez won in he won one of the toughest races in the whole calendar, besides Assen, which they are already this weekend. Well, basically, he basically won at Sachsenring, which is Germany. It's quite a tough one because you have lots of right-handers or left-handers. I think it was more left-handers, left turns. And yeah, it's basically really tough race. But King of the Ring cannot be beaten, even by a bone fracture. Not even with that. But let's go. Marc Marquez Alenta, born 17th of February 1993, is a Spanish Grand Prix motorcycle road racer and one of the most successful motorcycle racers at all time, with 8 Grand Prix World Championships to his name, 6 of which are in the Premier MotoGP class. Marquez races for Honda's factory team since his MotoGP debut in 2013. He's nicknamed the Ant of Severa worldwide and El Tro de Severa in his hometown, meaning the Thunder of Severa. He's one of 4 riders that have won World Championship titles in 3 different categories, after Mike Hailwood, Phil Reed and Valentino Rossi. Marquez is often considered one of the greatest innovators of modern MotoGP racing, or the GOAT. Let's put it that way. Due to his comparatively exaggerated cornering technique of leaning so far over the bike, he seems to be in consistent danger of sliding out. He's also the youngest ever champion in MotoGP history. Born in Severa, Catalonia, Spain, Marquez became the second Catalan driver after Alex Crivell and the third Spaniard after Crivell and Jorge Lorenzo to win the Premier Class title, and is to date the most successful Catalan and Spanish driver in the top category. Marquez won the 2010 125cc World Championship, that is basically the Moto3, the 2012 Moto2 World Championship, and the 2013, 2014, 2016, 2017, 2018 and 2019 World Championships in the MotoGP. Marquez became the first rider since Kenny Roberts in 1987 to accomplish the Premier Class titles in his first season, and the youngest to win the title overall. In 2014, he defended his title, winning the World Championship with 3 rounds to spare, during which he won 10 races in a row. He's the older brother of 2014 Moto3 World Champion and the 2019 Moto2 World Champion, Alex Marquez. Marquez equaled the all-time Grand Prix record for pole positions at the age of 23 in 2016. Marquez secured the 2016 title with 3 rounds to spare at Motegi and sealed the title at Valencia in the final round of 2017. I watched that race. That race was hectic. If you haven't watched that race, then go and do it now. It was amazing. He then went on to win the 2018 title with 3 races to spare and became the third highest all-time Grand Prix winner. He secured the 2019 title with 4 races to spare at the Chang International Circuit in Thailand, making his 8th World Championship with 6th Premier and marking his 8th World Championship and 6th Premier Class Championship. Marquez missed almost all of the compressed and delayed 2020 season, completed 26 laps of the first race before falling, as well as the start of the 2021 season because of a broken arm sustained in the 2020 season opener. So that's basically the intro. We're now going to dive into his career. So, the 125cc World Championship. Born in Severa, Catalonia, Spain, basically Barcelona, Marquez made his championship debut on the 13th of April 2008 at the Moto3, at that time 125cc, 2008 Portuguese Grand Prix at the age of 15 years old and 56 days. Now you have to be at least 16 years old to race in MotoGP, in the junior class. He's the youngest Spanish driver to take a pole position or a podium on a motorcycle racing world championship. In a motorcycle racing world championship. Marquez achieved his first podium on the 22nd of June 2008 at the British Grand Prix. For 2009, as a KTM factory rider at the French Grand Prix, he achieved his first pole position at the age of 16 years and 89 days. He also took pole for the 2010 Spanish Grand Prix, but the exhaust pipe fell off on the opening lap and went under the rear wheel, causing Marquez to crash and injure his shoulder. His first win was on June the 6th, 2010 at Mugello. Further victories at Silverstone, Assen, Catalonia in the next 3 races made Marquez the youngest rider to win 4 successive races. His 5th win in succession at the Sachsenring was Derby's 100th victory in MotoGP in Grand Prix racing, and Marquez became the first rider since Valentino Rossi in 1997 to win 5 successive races in the 125cc racing. At that point, he was starting to become the king of the ring. He was less successful in the following races, dropping to 3rd in the standings at the at one point behind Nicolas Terrell and Paul Espargaro, after being involved in an accident with Randy Krummenacher at the first corner of the Aragon Grand Prix. 4 successive wins at Motegi onwards had moved Marquez into a 17-point lead over Terrell, with only 1 round to go. At Estoril, the race was red flagged due to rain, with Marquez running second to Terrell. When returning to the grid for the second race, basically the restart, Marquez fell on the sighting lap and had to return to the pits. With repairs, Marquez started at the back of the field, having not made it out of the pit lane before it closed 5 minutes prior to the start. Despite this, Marquez recovered to win the race and thus extends his lead before the Valencia final. His 10th victory of the season moved him within one of tying the records set by Rossi in 1997. It would fall short of tying it, as he was 4th at the final race at Valencia to become the 2nd youngest world champion after Loris Capirossi. Then he moved to Moto2. Marquez moved into the Moto2 class for 2011, the first of an extended 2-year deal. As the sole driver of the new Monau competition run by his manager, Emilio Alzamora. He finished 21st in Portugal, before taking his first victory in the class at the French Grand Prix. At his home race in Catalonia, Marquez finished 2nd behind championship leader Stefan Bradl, who is now test driver and reserve for Repsol Honda. Before another fall at Silverstone, having started from his Moto2 pole, with Bradl taking his 4th victory in the first 6 races. Marquez trailed him by 82 points at the end of the weekend. Marquez had made a mid-season surge up the championship standings, winning 6 of the next 7 races to move within 6 points of Bradl in the championship standings. In the Japanese Grand Prix, Marquez took his 7th pole of the season, but finished 2nd to Andrea Iannone. But that finish, combined with a 4th place for Bradl, allowed Marquez to take the championship lead by 1 point. At the Australian Grand Prix, Marquez was involved with an accident with Ratha Park Willerot during free practice. Marquez crashed into the back of Willerot after the session had been concluded, and for riding in an irresponsible manner, he basically drove into the back of that guy. When he thought that it was still going, but it was not. It had finished. This session had finished, so why carry on? Well, you know, everyone's going slow and driving in your way. You know, it's just asking for trouble. He was giving a 1-minute time penalty onto his qualifying time. The penalty ensured Marquez would start the race from last on the grid, but he made his way through the field and eventually finished the race in 3rd place. That just shows that penalties aren't, you know, that these kind of penalties just, you know, you can work your way around it, you know. Prior to the Malaysian Grand Prix, Marquez confirmed that he would remain in Moto2 for the 2012 season, after rumours of a move into the MotoGP class. Marquez's race weekend was hampered in the opening minutes of the first 3 practice sessions. As he crashed on a damp patch of asphalt. After sitting out 2 further practice sessions, Marquez completed 2 laps in the qualifying session, but his times were only good enough for 36th place on the grid. He did not start the race as he failed a medical examination prior to the warm-up on race morning. Marquez attended the final race of the season in Valencia in the hope of being fit to compete, but withdrew due to his continued vision problems, giving Bradle the title. In 2012, Marquez won the MotoGP championship title after a season-long battle with fellow Spanish rider, now teammate in MotoGP, Pol Espargaro. A 3rd place finish for Marquez at the Australian Grand Prix, despite a win for Espargaro, was enough to give him his 2nd world title before moving to the Premier class for the 2013 season. He took his last victory in the class at the Valencian Grand Prix, the last event of the season, despite starting from 33rd on the grid. His performance, which involved overtaking 20 bikes on the first lap alone, became the biggest comeback in the sport's history. He finished the season with 9 race wins, setting a record for the class that still stands. Marquez's result was enough to give Suter the constructors' title for the class. I'm surprised that has never been broken. You know? Would it have already been broken? Or not? We'll see next year. I will write down whoever has won. And then at the end of the season, we will find out if the record has been broken. It will probably be already been displayed on the screen, you know. But how can it now already been broken? I mean, this is only like... No, it can. Wait. Bahrain, Doha, Portugal, Catalonia, Mugello, Sachsenring. Every race has had a different race winner, so not yet broken. But we're going to go to the MotoGP World Championship, where he remained. Where he basically started with Repsol Honda and remained there until he's going to retire, but I hope not, because he's still a young kid. We can call him a kid. On the 12th of July 2012, it was announced that Marquez had signed a 2-year contract with the Repsol Honda team in MotoGP, replacing the retiring Casey Stoner and joining teammate Dani Pedrosa from 2013 onwards. Marquez tested the Honda RC213V for the first time in Valencia at the end of the 2012 championships, lapping just over a second slower than his teammate and compatriot Dani Pedrosa, who topped the timesheets. Marquez was again impressive during the first official MotoGP test at Sepang, where he finished the first 2 days of testing at 3rd position, just behind Dani Pedrosa and Jorge Lorenzo, and ahead of Valentino Rossi in 4th, before swapping bikes with Rossi on the final days. Marquez also did a race simulation during the closing stages of the session, and his timings were consistent and phenomenal for a rookie. Marquez continued his impressive form in the private test of Honda at Austin, where he topped the timesheets all 3 days. 2013. Marquez started the 2013 season with a podium finish in Qatar. He qualified 6th and eventually finished 3rd behind Jorge Lorenzo and Valentino Rossi. At the 2nd round of the championship at the new Circuit of the Americas in Texas, Marquez beat his teammate Dani Pedrosa and became the first winner at a new track. In doing this, Marquez became the youngest ever MotoGP race winner at 20 years, 63 days, beating Freddie Spencer's 30-year-old record. Marquez slipped during the third free practice season without getting injured or damaging his bike, and eventually qualified third fastest at Jerez. Marquez finished the race in second behind teammate Dani Pedrosa. At Le Mans, Marquez took the second pole of his short MotoGP career, and that was 0.03 seconds ahead of Lorenzo. Marquez suffered a bad start to the race and spent many laps in the lower half of the top 10. However, by mid-race he began to find his rhythm and progressed forward. Marquez overtook Andrea Dovizioso with only 2 laps to go in the race to claim his 4th podium finish in as many races, tying Max Biaggi's record from 1998. Marquez endured a tough weekend at Mugello. After crashing his Repsol Honda on Friday morning, Marquez crashed again on Friday afternoon. He had a third crash on Saturday morning practice, but recovered to qualify on the second row for the race. He suffered his 4th crash of the weekend, with only 3 laps to go in the race. His first non-finish since joining the Premier class. At Catalunya, Marquez finished the race in 3rd place. At Assen, Marquez suffered a huge high side in the morning practice, causing small fractures in the little finger of his right hand, and also his left big toe. He finished the race in 3rd place. That is what you call strong, mentally and physically. At Sachsenring, following injuries to many rivals, Pedrosa and Lorenzo, to main rivals Pedrosa and Lorenzo, Marquez took his 3rd MotoGP pole position. After an average start, he worked his way to the lead by the end of lap 5, and was never again headed, despite a strong late race charge from Kyle Crutchlow to win by 1.5 seconds. At Laguna Seca, they raced there apparently, Marquez replicated the overtake that Rossi made on Casey Stoner at the same corner in 2008 to pass Rossi. He won his 3rd race of the year to extend his championship lead to 16 points over Dani Pedrosa. At Indianapolis, which is basically also a race in America. Now, no other race classes go there except for NASCAR and IndyCar, but they did race there, as well as Formula 1. At Indianapolis, Marquez grabbed pole position by 0.5 seconds from Jorge Lorenzo. In the race, Marquez made an average getaway and dropped behind Lorenzo and Pedrosa. On lap 12, Marquez passed Lorenzo for the lead. Lorenzo and Pedrosa were able to keep pace with Marquez for a few laps, but in the final few, the gap opened and Marquez took his 4th win of the year by just over 3 seconds. At Brno, which is Czech Republic, the race saw an intense battle between Marquez and Lorenzo. Lorenzo made a great start off the line and led the race at the first corner. The pair proceeded to swap places on various occasions, with the final pass coming at turn 3 with just under 4 laps to go. Marquez became the first rider to win 4 consecutive races since Valentino Rossi in 2008. At Silverstone, during Sunday morning warm-up, Marquez crashed his bike and dislocated his shoulder. The race was a fight between Marquez and Lorenzo in the early laps as they pulled away from the field. In the final laps, the two frontrunners traded places and paint. Marquez passed Lorenzo with only a few corners remaining, but was repassed and Marquez finished second. At Misano, Marquez was atop the standings once again, by over half a second over Lorenzo to claim pole position. Marquez finished the race in second place behind Lorenzo. In Aragon, Marquez started from pole for the 7th time in 2013. Again, Marquez lost the lead over Lorenzo in the first corner. Marquez found himself 2 seconds behind Lorenzo, but soon caught up with Lorenzo and eventually crossed the line over 1 second ahead of him to record his 6th victory of the season. With 4 races left, Marquez had 278 points, 39 points ahead of second place Lorenzo. At Sepang, Marquez took his 4th consecutive pole position. In the race, Marquez made another poor start and was fighting with Rossi for third and 4th places in the first laps of the race. Marquez finished the race in second place. At Phillip Island in Australia, Marquez was disqualified from the race, reducing his championship lead over Lorenzo, who won from 43 points to 18 points with 2 rounds to go. At Montegui, Marquez recovered from a heavy fall on race day morning to finish second behind Lorenzo. The result trimmed his championship lead to 13 points, meaning a 4th place at Valencia would be sufficient to crown him world champion even if Lorenzo won. Marquez started that race on pole, but had a bad start and fell to 3rd. Marquez then let Dani Pedrosa do most of the early attacking on Lorenzo. Lorenzo then pushed off a scare to win the race. Pedrosa and Marquez came 2nd and 3rd respectively, which was enough for Marquez to become champion, the youngest in series history. That was one hectic season, if I read it right like this. Right. 2014. The 2014 season started well for Marquez, producing fastest times on all 3 days of the first Malaysian test. He then suffered a broken right leg and was unable to take part in the second Malaysian test of the Phillip Island tyre test. The first race of the season was held in Losail, Qatar. Marquez progressed steadily through the event's practice sessions and showed strong pace on Saturday afternoon to take pole position. During the race, he made an average start, dropping to 4th place on lap 1. Marquez gradually worked his way to the front of the race and enduring a tense battle with Valentino Rossi for 2nd place and for the second half of the race, ultimately winning by 0.259 seconds. He also went on to win the next 5 rounds in Texas, Argentina, Spain, France and Italy, all from pole position. At the Catalan Grand Prix, Marquez failed to take pole position, qualifying 3rd after crashing during the session. But after holding off attacks from teammate Pedrosa and Yamaha powering Jorge Lorenzo and Valentino Rossi, Marquez was able to win his 7th race in a row, extending his championship lead to 58 over Rossi. With younger brother Alex winning the earlier Moto3 race, the Marquez brothers became the first siblings to win a Grand Prix World Championship races on the same day. The brothers repeated defeat at the Dutch TT 2 weeks later. At the German Grand Prix, the King of the Ring again won the race, thereby becoming the youngest rider to win 9 races in a row in the Premier class. With a 10th successive victory coming at Indianapolis, Marquez became the 3rd rider to achieve such a feat in the Premier class after Mick Doohan and Agostini. Marquez suffered his first defeat of the season at Brno, but won the following race at Silverstone, defeating Jorge Lorenzo. At Misano, Marquez crashed while battling for the race lead with Valentino Rossi. He remounted with the last lap retirement for Aleix Espargaro, was able to score 1 championship point. Marquez and Pedrosa crashed in heavy rain late in the race at Aragon and finished 13th and 14th, with Lorenzo winning his first race of the year after he stopped earlier from 3rd position to change to his wet setup motorcycle. They basically are allowed to do that. Basically, if they show a white flag in a MotoGP, the drivers are basically allowed to swap bikes. So you see the white flag being waved, and then you know, okay, I'm allowed to swap bikes. I'm gonna do it around this and this lap, and then I'll be tougher. Probably. Marquez clinched his 2nd title at Motegi with 3 rounds remaining. At Phillip Island, Marquez took his 12th pole position of the season, matching Casey Stoner's record from 2011. But he crashed out while leading the race. His first non-finish since the 2013 Italian Grand Prix. At Spang, Marquez broke Stoner's record with his 13th pole of the season and his 50th Grand Prix pole position. He took his 12th win of the season, matching Mick Doohan's record of most Premier Class victories in a single season from 1997. Marquez's result was good enough for Honda to claim the manufacturer's championship with a race to spare. At the final race in Valencia, Marquez broke Mick Doohan's record with his 13th win of the season. In 2015, he began. Well, I haven't watched the 2015 season, but we'll go over that one right now. The 2015 MotoGP season started off with Marquez once again being the favourite to take the championship, but he started slowly with a 5th place in Qatar after a mistake at turn 1 dropped him to the back of the 25-rider field. He won the 2nd race of the season in Texas, his third successive triumph at the Circuit of the Americas. In Argentina, Marquez started from pole and then led the race with a maximum lead of 4 seconds. However, Valentino Rossi closed the gap and on lap 22 caught up to Marquez. The 2 riders made contact at turn 5 with 2 laps remaining and Marquez crashing out of the race to record his first non-race finish since the 2014 Australian Grand Prix. He finished 2nd behind Jorge Lorenzo in Spain, despite riding with a fractured finger on his left hand after a dirty track accident a week before the race. In France, Marquez took his 3rd pole position of the season, but dropped down to 7th at the race start. He overtook Cal Crutchlow, who crashed out of the race and on lap 22 Marquez struggled during a hard battle for 4th place with Bradley Smith and Andrea Iannone, who was despite his injured left shoulder. He was riding despite his left injured shoulder. Marquez finally finished in 4th place ahead of Iannone. Marquez failed to finish the races in Italy and Catalonia, but returned to the podium with a 2nd place finish at Assen. After a long race battle with Rossi, Marquez took successive victories in Germany and Indianapolis, King of the Ring, before a 2nd place finish at Brno. Marquez crashed out at Silverstone in wet conditions, but won at Misano. Marquez crashed out at Motorland Aragon, and the 4th place finish in Motegi ended his hopes of retaining the title. In his 130th start, Marquez achieved his 50th Grand Prix win, becoming the 9th rider to reach that mark, and the youngest to do so, at 22 years and 243 days, with the final lap pass on Jorge Lorenzo at the Australian Grand Prix. Marquez crashed out of the Malaysian Grand Prix after collision with Valentino Rossi. The incident was reviewed by race direction after the race, where Rossi was given 3 penalty points, enough to enforce a start from the back of the grid for the final race in Valencia. Marquez finished 2nd to Lorenzo in Valencia, with Lorenzo taking the world title. 2016. It's basically the first ever MotoGP race I ever watched. Probably. Having started off the year with a 3rd in Qatar and win in flag-to-flag Argentina due to tire problems, Marquez made it 2 wins in a row with a dominant performance at the Grand Prix of the Americas in Texas, with 6 seconds win over Lorenzo to claim an early championship lead. The first European race was held in Jerez, in Spain. Was the first real test of Marquez's new mentality of patience, and he proved it by finishing 3rd in his home Grand Prix behind Yamaha men Rossi and Lorenzo. Le Mans was not a good race for Marquez, as Honda suffers with lack of acceleration. He pushed in braking zones to try remain the podium battle, but only finished 13th following a crash with Ducati's Andrea Iannone in turn 7 with 13 laps remaining in the race. After the bad race result in France, Marquez and his team worked to improve the results and maintain the leadership. Their work gave them 3 second places in the next 3 races: the Italian Grand Prix, Spanish Grand Prix, and Dutch Grand Prix, and the 1st place at the GoPro Motorrad Grand Prix Deutschland at Sachsenring. There again he was the King of the Ring. After these good 4 results, he slowed down with a 5th position at the Red Bull Ring in Austria, followed by a 3rd position in Brno, and 2 4th positions at Silverstone and Misano. But then came the Aragon Grand Prix, which Marquez felt really comfortable in. He said he thought it suited his riding style better, and proved it by winning the race. Marquez clinched his 3rd MotoGP title and 5th world title overall at Motegi, Japan, with 3 rounds remaining after Valentino Rossi and Jorge Lorenzo crashed out of the race. Marquez's team created a t-shirt with the logo "Give Me 5" to celebrate his 5th world title overall. The 3 last races had been at Australia, Malaysia and Valencia. At the Australian Grand Prix, he crashed out of race while leading. Then he crashed while chasing the leading trio at the Malaysian Grand Prix in tricky wet conditions, but remounted the bike and finished in 11th position. When you already have the title, you can make those mistakes. Adding 5 more points to his point tally. Marquez finished the 2016 season with a second place at the Valencian Community Motorcycle Grand Prix, after struggling to get past the likes of Valentino Rossi and Andrea Iannone in the first part of the race. Marquez managed to break away from them in the second half of the race and began cutting down the gap to the race leader Jorge Lorenzo lap by lap, which proved futile as the race drew close, with Lorenzo crossing the line a second ahead of him. 2017. I was wrong about the last one. This race was the last one, the first ever MotoGP race I watched. And then I basically began to watch more and more and more. Until now I'm like watching every single race. And it's fun. Marquez started the 2017 season with a 4th place finish in Qatar, followed by a crash while leading in Argentina. He took his first win of the year in Texas, followed by a 2nd place behind teammate Dani Pedrosa at Jerez. He then suffered a 2nd crash of the season in France, followed by a disappointing 6th place at Mugello. Struggling in both races with the Honda's lack of acceleration of the corners. He finished 2nd in Catalonia despite suffering several crashes through practice and qualifying. He then recorded another podium finish in the Netherlands, beating Andrea Dovizioso and Kyle Crutchlow at the end of the race. However, from then onwards, fortune started to swing in Marquez's favour, taking his 8th consecutive victory at Sachsenring in Germany. At the same time, taking the lead of the championship. He then scored back-to-back victories at the Czech Republic after outfoxing his rivals by pitting early for slicks on a drying track. A week later in Austria, he narrowly lost out to Dovizioso in a thrilling race. He then suffered a rare engine failure at Silverstone, while Dovizioso took another victory, leaving the pair tied on points. He then fought back by taking back-to-back wins, first in a wet race in Misano, and then at his home race in Aragon. In Japan, he was again beaten on a last lap fight by Dovizioso in a similar situation to Austria. What won a week later in Australia, in what many felt was one of the greatest races in recent years. While Dovizioso finished in 13th after running off track, Marquez missed out on sealing the title in Malaysia, finishing 4th while Dovizioso won, meaning the title would go to the last round in Valencia. Marquez started the race from pole, but narrowly avoided crashing after a dramatic save at turn 1. That save was phenomenal, dropping from 1st to 5th position. However, moments later, Dovizioso crashed at turn 8, immediately handing Marquez his 6th world title. I remember during that celebration, he basically had to throw dice and it landed on the 6. It was amazing to see that. But 2018 was basically the first, the first one that I watched completely. The race at Assen. You have to watch that one. That one was the most thrilling one ever of 2018. It was like Marquez, Rossi, Lorenzo, Dovizioso. I think Pedrosa was in there as well. And Alex Rins, definitely. There were like 6 or 7 people fighting for the win. Maverick Vinales was in there as well, because Vinales got onto the podium, as well as Rins. That one was amazing. And it was also a scary moment where Rossi drove into the back of Lorenzo, but they both remained on their bikes, so it was fine. Racing incident. Marquez dominated the 2018 season despite the narrow time margins in the MotoGP field, increasing his number of race wins compared to the previous 2 championship seasons. He started the year off by narrowly falling short of Andrea Dovizioso of the final corner in Qatar, before controversial performance resulting in 3 penalties and causing Valentino Rossi to crash, led to Marquez being stripped of a 5th place finish in Argentina. Following a grid penalty of 3 positions for impending Maverick Vinales, costing Marquez pole position in the United States. Marquez followed that win up by winning at Jerez, surviving a high-speed slide following gravel on the track, following a crash for Thomas Luthi. He also scored another win at Le Mans. Both wins were his first of the respective circuits for 4 years and gave him commanding championship lead. Due to a crash at Mugello, that lead dropped. He still finished, by the way. He basically finished 17th. Before a 2nd place finish in Catalonia, and wins at Assen and Sachsenring led to the commanding advantage being restored. Sachsenring was among his most hard-fought in terms of his 9 wins on the track, while he led a massive pack at Assen. You have to watch that race. I'll put it in the description down below, the full race. Like, you'll be sitting on the edge of your chair watching that race. It was amazing. About lap 11, that's where Rossi hit Lorenzo. And the back. Gave a nice scar on the bike for Lorenzo. Scar to remember. Of, having not fallen while the 9-time world champion hit you on the back. In Formula 1, it would mean instant DNF. In MotoGP, it doesn't have to. After the summer break, Ducati won successive races at Brno and in Austria. Marquez finished 3rd in the chess event, whereas he narrowly lost to Lorenzo on the final lap in Austria. With the Brno race winner Dovizioso finishing 3rd in Austria, the championship lead remained strong. Following the British event being cancelled due to dangerous track conditions, rain, Ducati took the 3rd consecutive win at Misano, with Dovizioso leading Marquez across the line. Marquez sealed the championship after 3 successive hard-fought wins in duels with Dovizioso. The races at Aragon, Thailand and Japan all had in common that Dovizioso led from early in the race until Marquez made successful late passes and held the Italian driver off. In Japan, Dovizioso fell on the penultimate lap trying to catch Marquez to attempt a repass, which left him out of points and sealed Marquez's title once he dropped back out of the points, while Marquez cruising home for his 3rd consecutive win and 8th overall. With 3 runs to spare, Marquez reached his 5th overall MotoGP title. and sealed a third title in a row. The first rider to do so since Valentino Rossi won 5 in a row in the early 2000s. He qualified on pole position for Australia, but in lap 7 he was overtaken by Andrea Dovizioso and Jack Miller. And 3 laps later, the rear end of Marquez's bike was struck by Johan Sarko, which caused Sarko to crash and Marquez's seat to malfunction, ending his race. Both riders were okay. In Malaysia, he started on 7th place, but took a 9th victory after race leader Valentino Rossi crashed out in a close battle with Marquez. I saw that race live. Who had chased him down to just a few tenths of a second, finishing only in 18th place. However, the final race of the season at Valencia, he crashed out of the race, having chosen harder wet tyres than the opposition on the soaked track. At the end of the race, Marquez's MotoGP victory, total 44, placed him in the top 5 in wins all time and second for Honda in the Premier class. I do have to say, at the end of that season, Marquez had dislocated his shoulder again. Like, he had dislocated it in qualifying the same weekend. In the race it made it worse because it was wet. And in the Moto3, a wildcard driver won the race, and his name was Canon True. And now his twin brother Denison True is racing in the Moto3 as well. And I have to say, that man is strong. He's as old as me. They're both 17 years old. And they're from Turkey. So, yeah. They're really good guys. They're really strong. They both show a lot of strength. On KTM. In 2019, recovering from his shoulder surgery, Marquez had compromised the preseason, but still managed to take the Qatar opener to the final corner, where he ultimately fell short to Dovizioso again for a second time. In Argentina, Marquez completely dominated the race from start to finish, cruising to a victory with a sizable margin, while leading the United States. For a 7th consecutive season, Marquez suddenly crashed out, attributed to a problem with the engine brake in heavy braking zones. Marquez avenged the crash by reclaiming the title lead with a composed win at Jerez, where he led from start to finish. He then won in France, pulling away after an early fight for position up front with Jack Miller. After having to settle for second at Mugello, in a 3-man battle with Ducati duo Danilo Petrucci, who won the race, and Dovizioso, Marquez narrowly escaped the pileup triggered by Lorenzo, losing the front end at the hairpin in Barcelona on the second lap, through having overtaken Dovizioso seconds before the impact, involving Vinales, Dovizioso, and lastly Valentino Rossi, as felt in the same accident. With his 4 closest rivals being taken out at once, Marquez controlled the race with a sizable margin. His second career win at his home region's Grand Prix. He further increased his title lead through a 2nd place at Assen, where he finished behind Maverick Vinales, who was 100 points adrift in the standings going into the race, whereas the closer title rivals all had difficult races. Marquez fully dominated the Sachsenring round for his 10th consecutive win in all categories on the season, making him the king of the ring and sealing his 5th win of the season and a commanding lead over the summer break. After the race this weekend, it is also summer break for the MotoGP, for the motorsport. Formula 1 goes 1 weekend more. Basically, the summer break is after my sister's birthday, which is the 4th of July. So yeah, it's fun. Marquez took his 50th career MotoGP win at the Czech Republic round after a pole position by 2.5 seconds in tricky half-wet conditions and leading the race from start to finish. Marquez won his 6th Premier Class championship and 8th championship after winning a last lap battle with Fabio Quartararo in the 2019 Thailand Grand Prix at the Buriram International Circuit. Marquez didn't have to win to take the championship. He could have just let Fabio Quartararo win the race there, and then he was also champion. Yeah. But I think he wanted to do it in style. So basically, he wanted to win in style, you know. Let everyone see what a champion he is. Well, you already know, because he's got 8 championships overall. But yeah, Marquez closed out of the season in commanding fashion, winning 3 of the 4 final races after his championship had been sealed. In the penultimate round, however, he did injure his shoulder in qualifying. He recovered to finish 2nd in the race, but required post-season surgery once more. Marquez ended the season with 12 wins and 420 points, placing him 151 points ahead of Andrea Dovizioso. This meant Marquez had more than 6 race wins worth of points championship margin. In 2020, in the pre-season, Marquez signed a new 4-year deal with Honda, extending his stay with the Mark until the end of 2024. This unusually long contract took Marquez out of the market for the normal biannual contract cycle, also for the 2023 season. In the first round of the championship in Jerez, he fell off his bike while chasing Fabio Quartararo for the race lead. The fall broke the humerus in his right arm. It was just broken completely. And he did not finish the race, which was won by Fabio Quartararo. By fabulous Fabio Quartararo. Formidable. Marquez returned to Jerez for the Andalusia Grand Prix only a few days after his first surgery on the 21st of July 2020 to repair his broken humerus. He participated in FP4 of the Saturday on the race weekend, only to declare that he had too much pain in his recently injured arm. He withdrew from the race as Quartararo went on to win again. Marquez missed the rest of the season and the start of the next. In 2021, Marquez was expected to make his return after missing the opening 2 races held in Qatar. He announced his return ahead of the Portuguese Grand Prix in Portimao, ending in the 7th place, taking 9 points. After a 9th place finish in Jerez, Marquez suffered 3 consecutive DNFs, including one in Le Mans, where he crashed twice, where he had found himself leading the race in mixed conditions. He basically cut part of the corner. Yeah. He cut the corner coming into the pit lane. But hey, no, it was not noted. didn't got noted. For the German Grand Prix, Marquez qualified on the second row in the race. He got into the lead in the early laps and held on to it to take his first win in 581 days. And his 11th consecutive win at the Sachsenring, making him the king of the ring, not being able to get ever been unless he retires. But now, basically, we're gonna go to his records, because he has quite a lot of records. I can see here. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna leave all of the of his records into the description down below, just so you guys can read how many they are, because I'm not gonna be able to read them out all. We're gonna go on to personal life now, which is basically his last one. If you can hear the vacuum cleaner, it's my mum. She's cleaning the stairway. Although Marquez has won several championships, he was always turned down using the number 1 as racing number, favoring his #93, which is the year of his birth. The 93 is displayed in white text and the red background on his bike in official merchandise, being compatible with Honda's red and orange navy blue livery. Marquez's father, Julia, has followed him around the world in his team garage and is a permanent fixture in the Grand Prix paddock, while his mother's appearances are rarer. His younger brother, Alex Marquez, is also a motorcycle racing world champion, having won the Moto3 class in 2014 and the Moto2 class in 2019. The duo became the first pair of brothers to win road racing world championships the same season, and repeated the fate again in 2019. 5 years earlier, Marquez jokingly referred to him preferring bikes over girls in a 2014 interview, but conceded it was a difficult question, and also added that in spite of him being unafraid on a bike, he would never go out on a boat at sea. Aside from his native tongues of Catalan and Spanish, Marquez is a fluent speaker of English. Even after becoming world champion, rather than moving to a tax haven, like many fellow racers, he still lives in his hometown of Severa, with his website citing training opportunities on dirty bikes in a location as ideal. His official fan club is also located in Severa, chaired by his uncle Ramon, adjacent to an exhibition at the Town Museum, where memorabilia, including championship-winning bikes, are displayed. Marquez is also involved in several charities. He was in a relationship with Blanco Romero's daughter, Lucia Romero Ezama. Marquez's motive since 2012 has been the end. This can be seen on various gloves, helmets and pitboards he and his team uses. The reasoning behind this has been, when he started out riding motorcycles, his size was diminutive that the team had to add ballast to his bike to compensate the lack of weight. Therefore, the team nicknamed him an ant for the comparison of the animal, which is so small but has the strength to carry 100 times as much as his body weight. As of October 2018, on the day of his 5th MotoGP title, Marquez had close to 4 million Facebook followers, being one of the largest motor races and Spanish athletes on the platform. A Roman Catholic, Marquez, along with 4 other MotoGP riders, met Pope Francis at the Vatican in September 2018. Marquez is a fan of football club Barcelona, just like Max Verstappen, and has visited the club and its first team in the past. And that is it for today's podcast. I hope you guys have learned more about the King of the Ring. That's basically why I'm doing this. And also it's part of predictions challenges because he crashed out of a race and basically I had to do a podcast about it, and I was looking for the right time, and I thought, well, because he won last weekend in Germany, becoming King of the Ring, or still being King of the Ring, I have to do a podcast about him now, because, you know, having crashed out of an entire season, and, you know, having failed to win, and then all of a sudden you win at one of your strongest races. That's just, you know, luck or fortune, or just, you know, being strong. But that's it for today's podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions for any other podcast you want me to do, then please let me know in the comments down below, and I will put them on the list. And yeah, also subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the like button if you've enjoyed this one. But that's it for me for now, and I will see you guys on Monday for a little montage, of 2 things I'm going to be doing during predictions challenges. So yeah, I will see you guys next time.